representing the Ford Foundation Fellowships, the Ford Foundation is very interested in fostering diversity. We all know that the student population is increasingly diverse. The Ford Foundation has had a focus to foster and promote diversity probably for about 50 years. And my office has been involved in the administration of fellowships to support diversity since 1979. So at this point, we have over 2,700 Ford Fellows. Some of them are administrators at USF. Deborah Walker-King is a former Ford Fellow. And so the University of Florida, pardon me. So anyway, what I want to mention to you is this, that we have an electronic directory of our fellows. And you certainly can access that electronic directory. You can search it by field. You can search it by area of the country, by state. And you can see who individuals are who have been recipients of fellowships and get some professional advice from them. In addition to that, at our website, we have regional liaisons. They have volunteered to be accessible to anyone who is seeking advice. And sometimes the advice is of a professional nature. You can ask them advice about your research. You can also ask them advice about your career, how it's progressing, what advice they might share with you. Since they have volunteered for this position, they certainly will respond to you, and that's great to know that they are there. Do you have to be a Ford Fellowship recipient to avail yourself of this? No, you do not. So it's important to share that with you. So this afternoon, what I'd like you to become aware of are the deadlines for our fellowship program this year. We have pre-doctoral, dissertation, and postdoctoral fellowships. The deadlines are on the colorful sheets of paper you have in front of you. The pre-doctoral deadline is November 14th, dissertation and postdoctoral deadline November 17th. What are the goals for the fellowship program? Basically, they are what I stated to you, and when you go to our website, you'll see this. The goals of the program are to increase diversity and to maximize the educational benefits of diversity. Also, increase the number of professors who value it and who are going to use the diversity before them as a teaching tool, and making sure each individual has a voice in the classroom. The eligibility for the program, the program is for citizens of the United States, and those who show evidence of superior academic achievement are encouraged to apply. Commitment to teaching and research at the college or university level is a requirement for the program, and also study in a research-based discipline. For those at the pre-doctoral and dissertation levels, it's important that they not have earned a doctoral degree earlier, so that would preclude them from applying. Those who plan to receive a PhD or SCD degree are those who are eligible to apply in the program. As you can see, this is a rather long list of eligible disciplines. We have life sciences, the physical sciences, math, engineering, we have social sciences, and we have the humanities. The humanities also include areas such as philosophy and religious studies, literature, art history, ethnomusicology, some areas that are not covered by some other major fellowships. So when the panelists review the applications, they'll be looking for evidence of superior academic achievement, the degree of promise that is evidenced in what you present to them, and then your capacity to seek diversity and use it as a teaching tool. And this is a very long statement about how you provide evidence of your sustained personal engagement with communities that are underrepresented. This is a very important part of the application. When you write your personal statements, in advance of that, it would be good to have conversations with people who know you well so that you cover all the areas of your life that indicate that you are helpful, that you are persistent, that you are inclusive, that you help others, that there's a social dimension to your efforts. Sometimes it can be evidenced in your part-time employment. If your part-time employment is tutoring other individuals to empower them so that they can go on with their studies, you would want to mention that in your personal statement. Your ability to overcome adversity or setbacks, that would be important to point to that also in your personal statement. And then the diversity of human experience is also considered. So if you've overcome barriers, and that has to do with any physical limitations that you have encountered along the way, any, again, if you reflect on your situation, if you are hearing impaired, if you're visually impaired, if there is something that you know yourself, that you have encountered difficulties and you have overcome them, and you not only can speak for yourself but for others in a similar situation, that would give testimony to the diversity of human experience that resonates with you and that you can use as a strong positive factor when others consider you for someone for a diversity fellowship. In addition to that, if you are a member of one of these groups, it's totally up to you whether you note it or not in your application. It's optional. But the Ford Foundation has indicated that these groups are underserved and underrepresented in the academic community. So if a panelist is reading your personal statement and you mention that you are a member of one of these groups, that can be considered by the reviewers when they're looking at your application. So at the pre-doctoral level, you need to be able to use 3 full years of support. One of those should include coursework. And if you're already in graduate school, part of your application is the submission of a verification form verifying that should you be awarded the fellowship, you still have 3 years remaining. You can fully use a 3-year fellowship. For those at the dissertation level, they must also submit a verification form verifying that they need 1 full year of writing in order to finish up their dissertation. And at the postdoctoral level, eligibility is for those who have received a PhD or SED degree within the last 7 years at the time of application. Usually those who apply at the postdoctoral level choose a host institution different from the one at which they just received the degree. The reason for that is that they expand their professional relationships. Is that a requirement? Not necessarily. If you're working in a certain area and you really want to get that research published, where you are currently houses source documents that you need to do in order to continue your work, you would refer to that in your application. So if you want to stay at your current institution, that is something that it would be very important to mention. These are the terms of your pre-doctoral fellowship stipend. Are you limited to $20,000 a year? No, you are not. You are permitted to supplement that. Sometimes the institution of choice will automatically supplement it to bring it up to what they typically give their graduate students. Are you permitted to pursue a part-time research assistantship or teaching assistantship? Yes, you may. We are particularly happy to permit that because sometimes if you appear on the university payroll, you have all your tuition and fees forgiven, for one thing, and then you're eligible for health insurance coverage. The fellowship provides $2,000 to your institution, and it's received by the institution in lieu of tuition and fees. So you're not held responsible for the balance of that. But it certainly eases things if you're already on the payroll, and for a TA or an RA, they forgive the remainder of that. We hold annual conferences of our Ford Fellows, and they are very dynamic. They're 2 days, usually in September or October each year. This year it'll be in Irvine, California, October 14th and 15th. It's multidisciplinary, multi-levels. You have fellows who were in the program years ago sharing their counsel. When they come back, we have press representatives come and meet with fellows on a one-to-one basis to talk about what they want to get published and how soon they might publish it and what format the manuscript should be submitted. And it's a really wonderful conference. We have dynamic speakers, and the fellows themselves present at plenary sessions. And usually we have between 300 and 350 attendees at our conference of Ford Fellows. In writing, we say the program will support you for 1 year of attendance, but it's usually 2 years of attendance. So you are encouraged not only the 2 years, the year of your fellowship and the year following, but also to volunteer for future years. So you may volunteer to be on the planning committee, to be a presenter, and there are many different ways someone can volunteer and thereby have their transportation and their hotel and meal costs covered by the Ford grant. And then the Ford liaisons come to this meeting every year. So it's just a wonderful way for people to form professional relationships and maintain them. The dissertation stipend is $21,000 a year. Again, supplementation is permitted. And again, conference attendance is supported, and mentoring by the Ford liaisons is a benefit as well. And at the postdoctoral level, the stipend is $40,000. Again, supplementation is permitted. At the close of the postdoctoral fellowship, $1,500 is provided by the sponsor, the Ford Foundation. The employing institution is asked to match that. If they cannot match dollar for dollar, they are asked to provide in-kind matching. And that can be reduction in teaching load or the help of an RA or a TA. And actually, sometimes our Ford postdoctoral fellows prefer the in-kind matching because it really helps them move a publication along or helps them to continue the research begun while on the fellowship. Postdoctoral fellows come to the conference for 2 years, and they are mentored by the Ford regional liaisons. In front of you, there are multiple papers showing our website. There's a little card that's a wallet-sized card that has our website on it. We also have a trifold brochure that describes the program, and you also have the colorful sheet of paper. All of them have the website. The application is totally online. What we encourage you to do is visit it as soon as it's available, and that's usually right after Labor Day. The deadlines, as you can see, are mid-November, so there's plenty of time to become familiar with what is expected in the application and to use that time so that when you submit the application, it's the best possible picture of you. You can also check the completeness of your application. If you've identified 4 individuals who are going to submit letters of reference for you, you can go back in after you've submitted and see if there's a date stamp indicating that the reference was received on your behalf. It's very important to do that. If you have less than 3 letters, your application will not be reviewed. So the minimum is 3. Very important for you to check the completeness of your application, also with regard to transcript submission. So start early, follow the instructions that you're given. There's a help page for every page of the application. There's content help, and there's technical help. And we have individuals who are wanting very much to be tapped so that they can help you submit a successful proposal for one of these fellowships. So please get help. It's available to you, and everyone is very knowledgeable. Everyone who is working on the Ford program, who works directly with me, probably right now has a minimum of 7 years of experience in fellowship administration. So you will be talking to people who have quite a wealth of experience. Proofread your application. Get someone trusted to give you feedback. Ask professors to give you feedback on the content. Also, make sure that everything is absolutely perfect with regard to grammar and punctuation. These are so competitive. The pre-doctoral award rate is only 4% in the latest competition. So you are throwing your application into a pool of highly selective pool, very competitive pool. So it's very important that it be absolutely the best picture of you. And then when we say cultivate your letters of reference, it's very important for you to maintain relationships, ongoing relationships with professors who have taught you, who think the world of you. And it's very important too, when you're speaking to them about this fellowship application, that you explain you need a letter of substance. It can't be one paragraph. If it goes one full page and part of the next page, that would be ideal, because it shows the person's level of attention that they paid to you. It also is testimony to the communication you have, so that they know what your goals are, your personal commitment to attaining your goals, whether or not they're realistic goals, and it would be wonderful if their letter also spoke to your goals as they align with program goals. If you've been a mentor, if you've been a catalyst for change on your campus, if you've brought a student organization, if you've been the president of that organization, if you've engaged in walks for charitable causes, those types of things your professor should know about you so that they can speak to that, since the social dimension is part of the Ford Foundation Fellowship. Again, your personal statement is very important. You are asked to consider certain things when you put your personal statement together. No one is making certain elements of it mandatory, but there are aspects of it that it would be to your advantage to mention, and these are some of the things that are listed here. We also have at our website similar advice, and it's advice from our past fellowship evaluators. It's advice from other fellowship programs. You'll see that there's a handout in front of you, and it's from, I think, New Mexico State University, where it's from 2006, and an article is in the Chronicle of Higher Education. And it has many things mentioned that are things that you'll see repeated in advice given to individuals seeking funding. The discipline required for applying for the Ford Fellowship or any fellowship is actually something that helps you focus on your own goals, your career goals, and the things that help to shape your focus as you proceed in your academic and professional training. So I hope that you will avail yourself to our website and to these other tools that are available. Again, we borrow other people's work. We've had things there from the Department of Engineering at the University of California at Berkeley. Like if there are things that we come across that we think would help our fellowship applicants, we then post them on our website. So we really hope that you will find that useful and informative. Your proposed plan of study is important. For those who are just starting out in their academic training or graduate training, a question that we're asked is, how specific do I need to be? I'm considering 3 different schools. The important thing is to focus on one of them, and focus on the faculty at one of them. And then focus on what the faculty is doing that excites you, that resonates with you. And then do not sound uncertain. Say, if I'm not accepted at Berkeley, I think I might go to this other institution. Eliminate anything that sounds like you are considering various options, even if you are. For the purpose of the fellowship application, it's very important to sound very focused and very directed. And what if you are awarded a Ford Fellowship? Do you have to go to the school that you put in your application? No. You have to adhere to the outline of eligibility. You have to be seeking a PhD in an eligible discipline at a school that provides the training for a PhD or an SED, but you're not held to the original institution that you put in the application when you're applying at the pre-doctoral level. So our hope is that you will look at the application in September and keep working on it until it's time to submit. And then once you do submit, keep track of what has been said on your behalf. So these are some of the things I've already mentioned. The reviewers are looking for someone who is very directed, very motivated, someone who has excelled. A question came up in the earlier session, should you list all awards? Maybe it'll look like you have benefited from many awards. The answer is yes, because you want to provide them with the evidence that when given the opportunity, you benefit from awards. What happens when you do that? Yes, you do run the risk of looking like someone who has benefited a lot and is looking again for another award. And would an individual looking at your application think that it may be time to spread the wealth a little bit among the group that are applying? We have no control over that, but it's incumbent upon you as an applicant to prove that you are an outstanding candidate. So we always advise individuals to list all awards. And yes, you can apply at the pre-doctoral level, later at the dissertation level, later at the postdoctoral level, all for 3 different Ford awards. There's nothing precluding that at this time. Your career goals should be in line with the fellowship goals. So if we say the Ford Foundation wishes to support individuals who want to go into academic teaching and research, it would not be advantageous to have some other goal listed there. And that may sound foolish to mention that to you. The truth of the matter is we would encourage you to apply for all the funding that you're eligible for. And it is an undertaking to keep straight all the different factors, because you need to align what your goals are with the fellowship goals. And you may be considering several options, and there's nothing wrong with that. What you need to do, though, is make sure that you don't, for instance, if you're applying for an NSF fellowship and a Ford, you want to make sure that your essays don't refer to your NSF application in the Ford application. That sounds obvious, but when you're busy and you're attending to other things, it's important to keep that straight. Also, I would advise you to keep a personal calendar with the various deadlines for the various fellowships, because that's a challenge to stay on top of deadlines. So I think all of these things listed here about submitting a successful plan of study are things that I've already mentioned or that you already know. We ask you often to sign up for fellowship information at conferences. We keep those email addresses, and it's really useful to be reminded. Say you haven't been that diligent about the calendar, you have other demands on your time. We will send you a reminder, and that does prove to be helpful for some individuals. Previous research, a question that comes up is whether or not if you've only conducted research as part of a research paper and you haven't done lab science, should you mention previous research? The most competitive applicants have the most complete files. So when you realize that you are competing with people who will submit this, it's really advantageous for you to consider what research have you undertaken and how can you demonstrate to the reviewers that you are successful at conducting research. And letters of reference, again, I think I mentioned this. We'll be asking you for an email address, and then you send them the initial notification that you are identifying them as someone who will write a letter for them. Should you ask them first if you can list them? That would be advisable for you to mention it first. If you know someone has written a letter of reference for you, it's important to follow up. You see that the date stamp is in your application. It shows they've written a letter of reference on your behalf. It would be very courteous to get back in touch and thank them for writing that letter for you. Chances are very good you'll need letters from this person for multiple reasons. So it's always good to express gratitude. Again, I mentioned the Conference of Ford Fellows. It's really a wonderful event. It's closed. It's the only people who are invited to attend are those who have had Ford Fellowships or those who are part of workshops, where fellows have identified individuals as potential sources of information and wisdom that they want to tap at this event. So I would encourage all of you to consider applying. And again, here's our email address and the fellowship office telephone number. Okay, so making use of available resources, I mentioned our website, I mentioned the regional liaisons. I really would encourage you to also search the entire web and see what other resources we have listed. We have a very long list of other fellowships. We also have a fellowship roundtable that meets twice a year. The individuals who participate, most of them are in the DC area. Almost all of them provide some type of fellowship support or internship, international as well as national. So you can find the address of the Fulbright office. You can find the address of the National Science Foundation. And there are a lot of sites on the website that can assist you as you search for sources of funding. Broadening vistas, why would you want to broaden your vistas as you progress through your academic training? Well, if you attend conferences like the Ford Conference, you're constantly building your professional network. If you stay in touch with your funding agency, as you progress through your academic training, you may have a Spencer Foundation Fellowship. You may have a Fulbright Fellowship. You may have a Ford Foundation Fellowship. Why would you want to stay in touch with staff people, the individuals administering those fellowships? Because they're going to need reviewers. They're going to need individuals to serve on committees. And if they think of you, ultimately they can write letters for you. So if you come up for tenure, if you come up for promotion in your academic path, and you need to indicate that you've been involved with other organizations outside of your academic community, and you've taken a leadership role. That would be very important. I was just asked for that type of letter this week. one of our past board fellows. Now, she's been a past co-chair of the conference. She's been, for multiple years, a member of the planning committee for the conference. She's been a reviewer for us, and she is currently a regional liaison for us. So she knows that that area of her tenure dossier is covered by her affiliation with the National Academy of Sciences in Washington, D.C. through the fellowship program. So I urge you to think about that, whatever your field of study is, because there are many organizations, and again, if you go to that fellowship roundtable listing, you'll see so many that have offerings like ours, where you can build a number of organizations where you have ongoing professional relationships, which ultimately will benefit you. In the short run, they benefit them as well. If we need someone to come and be on the life science panel, or we need someone to come and evaluate chemical engineering applications, our past fellows, more often than not, will certainly do that service for us. But again, it's a give and take situation. We are there for them as well when they need a letter from us. Skill building for a professional career. I heard this, I have to attribute this to Dr. Shirley Malcolm of the American Association for the Advancement of Science. She gives wonderful talks to people who have just obtained advanced degrees. And she said, you're just embarking on a career, you have wonderful training for your academic field of study. What you will find soon, though, is that you will be asked to be a specialist in other areas. If you are a bench scientist, if you're conducting research, and then you apply for a grant and you receive the grant, you're suddenly the administrator of that grant. You need to know about grants management. You'll have people working under you, so you'll need to know how to navigate interpersonal relationships. How do you resolve conflicts among those who are working for you? How do you encourage different employees with different skill levels differently and tap their strengths and build on those strengths? She mentioned also time management, because you're still going to be trying to conduct your research. And you're also going to have to attend to report writing. You'll have to give speeches. You may want to join Toastmasters or some group that helps you to build your ability to give a successful presentation before groups of people. How do you negotiate a successful? Now that's something that is inherent in fellowship attainment. If you get a fellowship award, you have to negotiate the terms of it with the sponsoring agency and with your graduate school. Even if fellowship regulations indicate that you cannot hold two major awards at once, if one of the fellowships says, but you may have supplementation, they may ask you for a budget. They may ask you to indicate, help them to decipher what is a reasonable amount of supplementation. Should you really hold two awards at one time? Well, if this is your fourth award and this covers your living expenses, this is some other award and it covers, and you have a list of 10 other types of expenses that you have other than living expenses, and you really need an equal amount of funding or even more funding to cover those other expenses, you may be able to negotiate having two awards at once. So it's very important for you to realize once you receive outside funding, you're in a very important position because it calls on negotiation skills. And you'll be dealing with administrators from a variety of agencies. If you've already gotten a letter from your graduate institution stating, because you're a graduate student in this department at this school, this is what we're able to offer you at this time. Then when you bring outside funding from another source, you need to revisit that letter you received and ensure that it is still true. There may be terms of that letter of offer that are slightly different now because you're bringing outside funding. So if the original letter said, we're guaranteeing you 5 years of support at this school, and you get 3 years of support from some other source, you need to revisit it. And if at all possible, get the new terms in writing, because there may be new terms. Things may be renegotiated when you bring outside funding. So why would you want to apply for a fellowship? What if your institution does offer you 5 years of support? Why would you, and you're in a 6-year program, why would you apply for a fellowship? First of all, it looks wonderful on your resume. those who look at your resume and are thinking of hiring you, they know how competitive the fellowships are. So if you have that on your resume, that is really an outstanding thing to point to. Even if you were accorded alternate status, they know that it's very difficult to get alternate status. If you were accorded honorable mention, they know that only a limited number of people are identified as honorable mention candidates. So any of those things are CV worthy. And so that's very important to note, I believe. So I think probably the best thing for me to do now is open it up for some questions. Yes, and will you tell me your name and department, please?
Sure. Paul Robinson II, Material Science and Engineering Department. I had a question about the timing. Let's say the dissertation fellowship. So let's say hypothetically a person applies for this upcoming time in November. They receive a notification in around April of the next year, is that right?
That's exactly right.
And then if awarded, they will see the funds come in around the summer or the fall of that year, is that true?
That is true. You can start earlier than summer, though. You can start June 1.
Oh, okay.
So, and then you determine whether you want 9 months of funding or 12 months of funding. If you start June 1 and you have 12 months of funding, your funding will continue until May 31 of 2013.
Oh, I see.
You would be expected to be completing the PhD in 2013.
Okay.
But that's an excellent question because the timing is critical for those dissertation applications. You have to get the timing just right to meet the requirements of our program. Yes?
So my question is also about your dissertation, the 1 year dissertation award. The purpose of that is for the writing phase. So after you've conducted your research and you're just writing up your report.
That's correct.
Okay. And so it doesn't allow for international studies. So it's just at your home institution writing.
If my memory is serving me correctly, we have had dissertation fellows who've gone to other countries while they were writing.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to be enrolled during your dissertation year. If your university permits you to be unenrolled,
Mm-hmm.
you may be unenrolled because we have no cost of education allowance at that level.
Mm-hmm.
It would be, we're really, the way you described it is exactly right. It's really meant for write-up. Now, something at the earlier session that came up had to do with the time span between the submission deadline of November and when the panelists review it. And hypothetically, the individual said, advances may be made in conducting my research during that time period, where the panelists may be looking at an application that is a little bit stale. It may really not reflect exactly where I am at the time, June 1, when I can start the fellowship. And that's understood by those who are reviewing the application. Something that I neglected to mention is that you can request the comments on your application, and often they are helpful. And at the dissertation level, at times reviewers will cite a source and say, you submitted an annotated bibliography, it could be made stronger with the inclusion of these two sources. So it is worth your while to request the comments made on your application, because there may be something of substance there that will actually make a very positive difference in your dissertation. But you do not have to be on site at the institution where you're going to obtain a PhD degree for the dissertation.
Okay. And so the expectation is that you complete writing during that year.
Correct. I didn't get your name.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm Annie Martinez. I'm a PhD candidate in art history.
Thank you. Yes.
I'm Chelsea Campbell. I'm in the fisheries program, and I had a question about the planning a career at a university. Because what if say you got a Ford fellowship and then during your degree you changed your mind as to what you wanted to pursue as a career after your degree? Would you have been lying?
No.
Are you really committed to that if you do change your mind? Because I know that
we've had Ford fellows. There's something I neglected to mention in the earlier session. Ford Fellows are not held to an academic career. The Ford Foundation wants to fund individuals who want to pursue that career. We've had individuals move in and out of academia. They've taught for a while, then they've worked in industry, they've been self-employed doing consulting work, and then come back to academia. There's something called the Ford Fellows Fund. This is going back to about 1995, I believe. One of our Ford Fellows said, it's time for us to fund a fellowship. So yearly, the fellows are asked if they're in a position to give, to make a contribution to the Ford Fellows Fund. And we, ever since it was instituted, we made at least one extra fellowship loan a year, funded by a combination of Ford Fellows giving and an interest income from the Ford grant. So the individual who started that worked as a university professor, then he went into industry, and now he's doing private consulting. So there's no stigma attached to that, and certainly there are fluctuations in hiring and hiring practices at universities. The Ford Foundation would not be pleased if people took very lightly the goals of the program and just saw it as a mechanism to get some of their graduate training funded by them. But there are no restrictions, and there is no follow-up. Well, the follow-up is this, and I think you'll be finding it as you go through your graduate programs. Those who attain a PhD degree typically have multiple sources of funding. Those funding sources, like the Ford Foundation fellowships, want to report on the fact that the money was used for the purpose in which it was given, and also that those who received the funding benefited. So there are now multiple surveys people receive, often on an annual basis. And funding agencies will plead with you to please complete these surveys, because we know it's cumbersome. We know if you've been funded by 3 different foundations, to get 3 different surveys a year is burdensome. On the other hand, there are individuals who have to report because of accountability issues. They have to demonstrate that this is money well spent. People are actually benefiting, students are benefiting, and universities are benefiting. So I've heard this said at our fellowship roundtable, and it's certainly true for us. Those who receive an award, when they're accepting the award, they're also, if you read the fine print, you're also agreeing to complete these periodic surveys so that we can assess the program and how it is designed. Are there any other questions? Jeanette, is there anything I covered earlier that I should be remembering to say?
I know you covered about your personal statement, what should be included, a little bit more thorough in the morning session.
Okay.
What are the expectations? How far back should you go? I know someone asked about if you did research your undergrad or graduate coursework, and what should you state?
Okay. Now the question came up about being a volunteer. If you look back on the number of years you've been in school, you may have done something, different types of things along the way. One thing that I mentioned this morning was, even if your time is very limited for a number of reasons, if you have some social service that you do on a monthly basis, one afternoon a month, one Saturday a month, you can then list that this is a prolonged, dedicated effort to better the life of someone else. And I think that's very important. I think the reviewers look for sustained personal engagement. So if you tutor individuals, but you're no longer tutoring individuals, but now you're helping out, teaching ESL one night a week. And you're also serving as the secretary of the Young Chemist Society, or you've set up a regional chapter of the American Indian Science and Engineering Society. It would be important to practice writing that in a very concise way and include all of it, because all of it shows that you have a sustained engagement with different groups. You want to empower others, and that it is not something that the types of personal statements I think that don't serve an individual as well are those that say, once I get my PhD degree, I'm going to be very inclusive. I'm going to, by then, the student body will be even more diverse than it is today. If there's no evidence of that leading up to that statement, that doesn't make for a very strong personal statement. So that's why you need to brainstorm. If you've worked part-time in a regional library, if you've done hands-on housing with your church, there may be a number of social service types of activities you've engaged in that you should reference when you're writing a personal statement. NSF has a very similar requirement, and that is that you address the broader impact. If you are awarded NSF funding, what is the impact to a broader audience? Both your research and also you as an individual. So I think that we're seeing more and more fellowship programs that are asking for this social dimension to why you should be selected. Anything else, Kim?
I think that was the only thing we missed from
This morning. Are there any other questions?
There's still 30 minutes.
Yes.
Like, I didn't came from the beginning, but this is for research. Yeah, can I like this funding go for research activity, like not for dissertation writing something?
Well, the dissertation award is for dissertation writing. All of the degree programs have to be research-based programs. But it's not research funding as in grant funding. This is funding for an individual, an excellent scholar who is seeking funding for his or her training in a research field.
Yeah, I like write is individual, but this is for research. Like I have research. I want to like done my PhD research proposal, and I have some late in budget. Is this fit in like the Ford Foundation?
Usually when a budget is required, you're applying for a grant. I'd say since you keep referring to research and funding research, you might need to talk to a faculty member about what it is you have in mind and talk to them, show them the materials from this session and see what their advice is to you. Because it could be that you are looking for funds for a startup grant for research, which is different from a fellowship to an individual. Could be.
Right.
I'm sorry, you would raise your hand.
Kristen Reed, I'm a fine arts in the Fine Arts College, and for studio art, I was just curious if there was ever any consideration to extend this program to fine arts MFA, or since that's a terminal degree, or not.
Years ago, this program was open to dual degrees, and it isn't any longer. And the reason was that the MFAs who were seeking MFA/PhD degrees tended to stop out with the MFA. And I think because the Ford Foundation wanted to fund individuals who were going to go on for the doctorate and potentially go on for administration, they thought stopping out with an MFA might not be, if those individuals tended to do that, and that was what we found, that maybe we should not offer, and a similar thing happened with JDPH. So they said, well, we don't think we want to fund dual degree programs anymore. But we have wonderful MFAs who were in the program in the early years. In the early 1980s, an MFA was considered a terminal degree for the postdoc. So some of the individuals, if you access our directory of fellows, you'll see individuals listed there, like Carol Blue is one, Margot Humphrey is one. There are individuals who have excelled and been professors with MFA degrees who had our postdocs, but they need to fund the program. So I don't know that they'll open it up more. It's so competitive now that I think there is a reluctance to open it up to make it even more competitive. Yes.
Paul Robinson II again. Question about the Ford conferences. So Ford Fellows, they get together, have these conferences. At these conferences, or maybe anything similar to it, do they have any workshops that are geared towards junior faculty who are interested in getting tenure, promotion, conferences related to helping junior faculty improve in their careers?
Absolutely. We have conferences for these levels, pre-doc, dissertation, and postdoc. And then they're further divided by social sciences and humanities and life and physical sciences. And then the moderator of those workshops gets to choose what they feel are the most important aspects. And certainly a postdoc session for individuals who already hold a PhD degree would be addressing issues that junior faculty members would face. So it varies slightly from year to year what's actually on the agenda for these sessions, but clearly they're designed by people who are in that position. Then if they say, I have a colleague who has been a wonderful mentor to me, and I think that they would be a wonderful mentor to others, they'll mention that person, and then that person's name appears on the agenda, and then they're covered by the Ford grant to attend the conference. So there are slight variations year to year in the format of the conference, but certainly those very issues are important to the attendees. What do you do for tenure? Who do you talk to about what the formal statements are about what is expected for you to have in your dossier for tenure or promotion? And in reality, if you engage in service a great deal, and you have very long hours advising students and hours spent on committee providing service to the university, are those hours really going to, how heavily will they weigh in the equation when you're being discussed for tenure, or does your university look focused primarily on publications? And those are things sometimes you will find out from trusted colleagues or from someone who knows the ropes at your institution. And again, we have so many past Ford Fellows now who are in the electronic directory. It would be good before you get into those kinds of very pointed questions to establish a relationship. I know that I've been at the conference when two people will meet and a senior Ford Fellow will say to someone who was recently awarded, I know you have been citing my work in your work. I was so surprised you never called me. And I think sometimes there's a shyness about calling someone whose work you revere. You think maybe they're too important or their stature is too great for you to either email them or pick up the phone and say, I really admire your work. But they expect it, or at least I've been present when those kinds of conversations have taken place. So, and if you ever think someone in my position or who works in an administrative role could facilitate that, we certainly would be happy to do that, because our finding has been that the Ford Fellows are very approachable and they really want to mentor others. They don't want other people to encounter any difficulties that just a well-timed word of advice will help prevent some obstacle from getting bigger.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? I'll be brave this time. I told Jeanette and Kim I wasn't brave to say this in the earlier session, but I am curious at times. Are there questions that aren't answered in a presentation like this? Is there something, are you wondering about something and it just wasn't addressed today? And maybe I'm putting you on the spot, but feel free to put that in your comments in the questionnaire, or get in touch with Earl Wade or Kim or Jeanette after the session. Just in case there is absolutely, a burning issue and it's just too, you just don't feel comfortable raising it, because the session will be more helpful really for you. It's designed for you, so if it can be improved, certainly we want that. I think from my perspective, the thing that I sometimes worry about are those of you who are in fields Ford does not support. So my hope for that, if you're in sports management, if you're in educational leadership, if there are certain fields, when you saw that list up there and your field wasn't represented, how do you find information about funding in that discipline? And again, I think our website has very long lists of fellowships, and I know that someone in social work education is a member of the Fellowship Roundtable. There are individuals that represent the Fulbright program. IREX, different organizations that fund international study. NSF has international research opportunities in Eastern Europe. There are tons of opportunities, and I'm hoping that by pointing to our web address, that it'll open for you a whole array of possible funding sources. And just know that at those sources, there is someone there who will either answer the phone or answer your email. And if they don't have an answer for you, they'll direct you to someone else. And I would encourage you to be persistent. Keep looking for funding. It really looks wonderful in your resume to have different sources of funding and different evaluators identifying you as someone of exceptional promise. That's really great. And I would say this too, and I said this in casual conversation to Jeanette and Kim. Some years ago, I was present when someone was reporting on research they had done for individuals who had, obtained doctoral degrees in a whole array of disciplines. And it had to do with job satisfaction. It had to do with how many of them were employed, and almost 100% of the individuals were employed in some job. And a very high percentage were very satisfied with the job that they obtained. Now, there was I can't give you the exact number, I don't recall it now, but there were quite a few that had gotten a degree in a field that seemed to be totally unrelated to the work they were now doing. And they had high job satisfaction. So it seems to me that when you go for an advanced degree and you're successful and you're persistent and you're hardworking and you live with the problems as you go through them and you encounter them and you rise above them, it shows a resilience and a tenacity that serves you well in any job you get. And the fact that the individual, say you received a PhD in fine arts, and you really wanted a teaching job and you didn't find one, but you got a job working for the Smithsonian Institution and you're working out in the museums in Washington. And you love what you're doing. And you bring interns in. And in that way you're doing something similar to teaching because you're administering a program, the students are coming in, they're benefiting from that Smithsonian experience, and they're considering working there as well. It's a great career. Is it the one that you set out to pursue? No. But you feel very fulfilled and you like what you're doing. And that's what this study showed. And to me, and maybe I'm making a leap here, but it just seemed like, okay, it's ultimately everyone wants to be working, you want to have a job and be fulfilled in the work that you do. But that attainment of that advanced degree is going to get you there. It's going to get you to, I believe, to a good place. And it may not take you exactly where you thought you were going when you set out on that academic path, but it may take you to a very good place. And I'm talking too much, but I'll tell you another story that I just saw. I heard Beverly Tatum speak, and she's the president of Spelman College, and she's a Gibbs Sport Fellow. And after she got her PhD degree, she decided to go for a Master's of Religion. And when she was pursuing this Master's of Religion degree, she had someone who was serving as a mentor to her. And this individual said to her, did you ever think about academic leadership? Did you ever think about becoming a university president? And she's by nature a quiet person. She likes doing research, she likes writing. And it wasn't something that she had really thought about. And this person said, I really think you'd be good if you thought about it. And then, when Spelman needed a president, someone forwarded the email to her and said, I think you would be great for this job. So she took herself to Spelman unannounced. She just went there and she went into some area on campus, I can't remember where it was, but there was a brochure there, kind of like this. And she picked it up and read it, and the goals of the school and what the school stood for resonated with her. And she thought, I think I'm being called to do this. And she said, it's like if you're in a room with a lot of people, you're in this corner, but over there there's a ringing telephone, and you're wishing someone else would answer that phone, and no one hears it but you. So you end up crossing the room and picking up the phone because you realize if you hear it, you should answer the call. And she said that she feels that's what happened to her. that when she read that brochure, and this friend had indicated, I think you'd be great for this job, she answered the call. And she said she thinks that those who are most fulfilled in life are those who realize that phone is ringing for them. And I just thought that was an absolutely wonderful story. And to add another little story on, because I think I have time. We registered very late for a meeting one year. And this is several years after Beverly Tatum gave this talk. And so our fellowship table wasn't in the general exhibit area. You had to take an escalator up, and there were about 8 tables in this upper level, and nothing was happening up there. And it looked like just a mistake, an absolute bad timing, bad placement. You know, why did we pay this big exhibit fee to be up on this upper level? And this person came along, and we started talking. And here, to shorten the story a bit, as we engaged in conversation, and she's retired now, but she told me what she had done full time before retirement. Here it was the woman who was the chief administrator of the divinity school that Beverly Tatum attended, and she was Beverly Tatum's mentor who told her who she considered being a college person. So what were the chances I would ever meet this person? It was like just an amazing moment, and she has, I think, affected a lot of people's lives very positively. And so what I wish for everyone here today is that you find a job like hers where she not only empowered Beverly Tatum, I'm sure she did it for many other individuals whose paths crossed hers. And I think that's really my hope for everyone here. So if there aren't any other questions, I think we'll close the session.